Equities market closed on a positive note yesterday as NGX All-Share Index appreciated by 0.27% to close at 47,286.34 basis points as against the previous appreciation of 0.21%. Year-to-date currently stand at 10.70% after dropping to around 9% last week. A market bread closed positive as Guinness led 29 gainers as against 9 losers, topped by Unity Cap at the end of yesterday's trading session. However, market turnover closed negative as volume moved down by 33.35%. It's against 24.78% recorded in the previous session. Stock of Charms, Transcorp, and Access were the most active to boost market turnover. But if you look at other stock that added up to the market value, you have Seplat and Flormew in that category. Transcorp leads the list of active stocks that recorded impressive volume spike at the end of yesterday's trading session. Let's bring in guest now, Mr. Ambrose Omodion, Chief Research Officer, Investor Consulting Limited. He's here with us in the studio. Thank you for your time. Yeah, you're here live now in the studio. Yes, of course, we talk about the volatility period and how investors are trying to take position in the current trend. Should investor hold or sell in this volatility market? Yes, we've seen straight 3 days a negative trading session before the board was back on the market. So how do we access this?
Like actually, when the market is so volatile like this, as an investor or trader, you need to apply caution. I mean caution, use your stop loss, not to always guide your position because you're in the market to make money, not to lose money. But when you are carried away with the market volatility, you might lose what you have invested. For that, have a stop loss, and when your loss touch that level, you are set to move to the next one, especially if you're a trader. But if you're an investor that you are thinking long term, you don't need to be running up, especially if what are traded into that company is still intact. But the bull return to the market, as you just said there on Wednesday, for me, it's a good thing for the market. You see, when there's any season like this, stocks are about to oscillate up and down. But the good thing is that as an investor, let your goal always guide you, the kind of stock you should invest. What happened in the market yesterday now, if you look at the trend yesterday, you saw at the beginning of the market, the early hours, the market was still dragging feet before the blue chips companies started appreciating the price. At the end of the day, closed up with about 0.3 for the day. For me, if you look at the category of stocks that gained yesterday, it tells you that investors are looking at those high dividend paying stocks and those companies that have shown that they have good earnings to support their payout. For me, it's a good thing for investors that the market is rebounding. But one other thing that at the end of today, we also look at, I think during our live class today, I also advise investors that we are trying to establish a trend. Market is going up. We want to see whether other indicators in the market are responding in that direction. Because if there's a divergence in the market is going up, indicator is not going up, it's also sending a sign to the market.
What are those other indicators?
No, indicators, I'm not using my chart now, but since I'm not using chart, I can't discover more indicator. But when there's divergence, it's sending, kind of a confusing signal. We need to wait now to see whether there will be kind of a correlation between the two. When the two are moving in this direction, it's better for us in the market. But now we're seeing a kind of a board. The good thing is that the change momentum and sentiment signal also last on Wednesday was sustained yesterday. It tells you that yes, investors are buying back their position and traders. That's why start yesterday we have also 100% buy position for NGS. That tells you so that the market is really strong. But the good thing also that if you look at the market breadth, 30 against 9, tells you that people are still taking position now. If you look at the gainers and losers, the highest loser in that yesterday chart was about just 4.2 against 10% gain for the day. You can see that market is becoming stronger. But the good thing is actually as a trader, also look at what we're going to discuss during the afternoon class between 12 to 3. We want to see if this divergence has been established. If it has established, we have to be very careful. But if it's closing up, good for us. I think during the class in the afternoon, we're seeing that the index is still going up, while some of the indicators are already drawing back. Tell you that something had to happen before the two start going. That means traders, we have to be very careful when they are. I said any season is about volatility, not about direction. That means if you enter a stock, you make money, sell off and come out. That's why your stop loss and your profit target should be the thing that will guide any investor in this market. If you fail to look at this thing, you'll be sleeping one day, your money will be up there.
Let's look at top 5 gainers for yesterday. You have Guinness in that category. Of course, I think Guinness impacted heavily on the volume of transaction yesterday. You have UPDC, you have R2 Briscoe for running for the second day. You have UPL there. Fundamentally, what should we be looking at in some of these stocks fundamentally, and how strong are they fundamentally?
Actually, looking at Guinness, for me, I would say Guinness is just market sentiment, and also when a foreign institution has an investment in a company, like this, we're having a forex issue. It's not because of the numbers of Guinness first quarter that came was too fantastic. No, yes, it's okay, good, but that is not enough to say the price is moving in that direction. We know that most of the foreign investors or that hold that position there, they're trying to increase their stake in Guinness. That was so important. But look at stocks that are Guinness that really interest me. They are down. Look at NGS, look at Total, look at Police Microfinance. We know that Total are dividend-paying stocks. Those are, and also their earnings at the end of the day was powerful to tell you that their dividend might likely inch up at the end of the day. For Total will move almost like 49.50 earnings per share for full year 2021. And Total just paid 4 naira in 3 dividend. That means you expect Total to pay anything no less than 30 naira as dividend. And that alone will attract investors to, and also looking at the low yield in environment in the fixed income market. And the last NPR the Treasury bill meeting that was held within the week, you see that interest rate on long-term Treasury bill about 364 days also declined with about 20 points to around 5.2. That alone also tells that the excess fund in that environment, we need to look for those dividend-paying stock. And don't forget that before now, even as at December, we know that the institutional investors in Nigeria have supported a market where we are seeing we are overrunning the foreign investor. It tells that as now that for the past 2 Treasury bill options that they've conducted, see the rate have declared. That means more money will look for where they can make additional return. I know that in equity investment, we'll have shorter time for you to make return, because it's now between February and April or May. It's less than 90 days than going to wait in a Treasury bill for 364 the whole year and get 5.2. Investor can make dividend yield of 6% minimum in that period. For me, that is why I can see funds will be going gradually to equity space, because that will also support the market. For me, I think the drop in Treasury rate is a plus for equity market, and that also kind of ginger up the investors, the vibe in the equity market during this earnings season. I think that is a good one for the market. But let investors not be carried away with that market.
Just before we go to positive. The top decliners for yesterday, yes, I mean, we understand that when inflation figures drop, I mean, people tend to really go for the money market, right? Yeah. The inflation is due for next week, Tuesday. So what are your expectations? If that reverses, if we still reverse in the inflation, now what is that likely to have? What impact would that have on the decision or the funds of investors?
Actually, I would say if it drop, it will have effect on the market because already 15.46 is already high, or it dropped to 15 is already high, because I'll tell you the highest return on the fixed income market is around 12 points. Anything that is below the inflation rate is still a negative return. I mean, even though it dropped for the first time, because you know that it was up in December because of the security, high consumption, because of festivity and all those stuff. Right. Even if it slowed down in January, it won't change the name, because the interest rate, because everybody is looking at interest rate to rise, but it's not moving the way people expected, especially those that are fixed income players. They think that this year, not knowing that the environment where they are hiking rates is not the same environment with our own. Yes, we depend on them for something. We want to attract them, but you can see that the CBN governor is like looking inward to see that we run our things with what we have, and that has started for a period of time now. For me, I think they were thinking that because rate to move faster because it's moving right in the mature economy, but our own is even slowing down because CBN has further extended their one-digit interest rate to 2023 for all those critical sectors they intervene. That means for agriculture, for healthcare, although aviation. That means for me, those businesses in that sector will also do well because they have extend your interest rate at 1 digit to 2023. And that's a plus. That should give you a body signal that CBN is not ready to adjust rate as speak now. That means in the next MPC meeting, the price they're going to hold is very high, because if it's extending 1 digit rate to those critical sectors that have intervened, and also you can see in the money market, we see that Treasury B rate is dropping, then him increasing the NPR next meeting is great for me, because we want this economy to balance first. Let's enter proper growth before you can think of adjusting your rate. Because let me tell you, we are not depending more on the foreign thing. Yes, we import more as a nation, but let's sustain within ourselves. Because if your cost of importing is high, it forces you as a company to do what we call backward integration. That's so that you can look what and stop importing, so that you now jack up your performance. But if all of us are looking outside to import our raw material, at the end of the day, we are working for the foreign company.
So as it is now, some of these indicators with respect to the monetary policy, it's looking up. It's good.
Yeah, yes, we are seeing improvement gradually. But like you just said, let's see the last GDP for 2021 last quarter. But from what has happened so far in the corporate angle, I see that the GDP for last quarter will be positive.
Let's look at the top 5 decliners. You have a very stark cap at UBN Ikeja Hotel, Regency Insurance, Alliance Insurance, FCMB is in that category, dropping. For FCMB dropped about 7 kobo yesterday. The UBN dropped about 20 kobo, Ikeja Hotel dropped about 4 kobo. So let's look at these. Why is investor sentiment negative in this direction? Maybe you should
actually, I would say this is not a negative sentiment. It's about profit taking. I always preach that as an investor, don't be greedy. Once you make profit, you can take your decision to sell it off, unless you want to still be greedy. For Union Bank, I think that rally for like almost 2 weeks, gain about almost for 2 weeks now, around 12.something%. In 14 days, you're making about what are you waiting? You're about to sell off your position and wait for another thing. But not that, as investors, I see another opportunity that they have higher dividend, yield. They can also sell position to move. That means they are not that there is negative sentiment for this company, just because it's a decision to be made to reposition.
And they have to take out their money.
Yeah, to reposition your position is very.
Yeah, it's the last trading day of the week. Let's wrap it up now. What's up for today, and how do you think the market will end the week?
I expect that the sentiment we have seen the last 2 days should extend to today. I say it.